I am live on my personal profile. For who's new, welcome to live video. I haven't done for a while. I haven't done any of these for a while. So the video is how I became one of the UK's highest paid personal trainers. At one point, my clients were paying me $18,000, which at the time was about £12,000, for anywhere between 4 and 6 months. In fact, the last one was paying me about $5,000 a month, and that was individually each. And the main aim of this video is actually to tell you how that was the beginning part, the sort of initial stages of belief that allowed me to move online a couple of years later, a year later or so. Now, this was for structure. This was almost exactly a decade ago now. I hired my first coach who showed me how to do online fitness. In fact, he showed me how to sell high-priced online fitness on the internet. 2014, it wasn't quite so commonplace as it is now. One thing that really occurred to me when I was thinking about this client and working with him in person is what I guess in a way justified me having the confidence to be able to charge that sort of price. So I was sitting in Fitness First and I made this decision, and they all laughed at me, by the way, the other personal trainers, that I was going to go from charging £60 an hour, so about, I don't know, at the time about $85 an hour, and I was going to go and get myself some clients that would pay me $2,000 a month, which again in the maths at the time was about $3,000 a month, and I was going to sign them up for 6 months. I was very determined, so I knew I had to be able to do that. I had to get better at marketing, I had to get better at sales, I had to put myself in the right position, I had to move the gym that I was in, or move my gym. Went from Fitness First in Liverpool Street, which is decently affluent. It's the city, the Wall Street example, or equivalent. But I knew that I really needed to get in front of the people that had the most amount of money in London. I was lucky enough to be based in London. So I went and found a studio in Belgravia, which is pretty much near Knightsbridge, Harrods, that kind of area. And I realised also that I needed to be very, very good at what I was doing. I'd already done a lot of the work around how to train people, and I was just getting into this stuff around mindset. Much of it had been reading for my own business, my own mindset, getting over my own limiting beliefs, getting over my own self-sabotaging patterns. And then I started doing this bit by bit with my clients. And it all came to fruition where I had the confidence to sign this client up. I went to speak to him. We did the consultation in person. I told him how much it was. He actually asked me, after me saying it was $18,000, he actually asked me, is that per month? Which was quite amusing. I said no, obviously. And then I walked away, and I had a new client and pay me a ridiculous, probably paying me more than many fit pros get from all of their clients, or personal trainers get from all of their clients. And if you had asked him at the end of our time working together, did he think that there was value in what he paid me, he probably would have told you that the value was like 3, 4, 5, 10x. Now, of course, this guy was incredibly wealthy, but he had hired about 8 personal trainers before me. Not only had he hired 8 personal trainers before me, he had hired and been to one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, private members club. Just the membership for this place was more than what I charged him. And he didn't quite know how I got into his head so much. In fact, I don't even know if he realised that I had. He just knew that I was the last coach that he would ever need to hire. When we stopped, we would keep in contact. And he went on to lose about another £10, and he's kept it all off. And he literally thought I was some genius. Now, what I did when I was working with him is I would start to do some of the sort of values work that I was learning. I was doing some of the mindset shift work. I was working on his own limiting beliefs. And I had to do it bit by bit because, again, I wasn't like fully confident. I wasn't like I would be now, or what I ended up being. I dripped it in. I trained him 4 times a week. That's why I could charge him so much. And at the end, he lost like 30, 35 pounds. And again, it was the deep mindset shifts that I'd worked with him on. Now, it's interesting because around the same time, I had another client. And I guess, if anything, it gave me some confidence with this client, this guy. And I just sold him personal training, didn't know anything else. And with this other client, I was doing personal training with her as well. And I started more like, not officially, but started more doing some of the deeper mindset work. And instead of sort of spattering it between like sets and reps and all that, which isn't ideal, we would actually sometimes spend the first sort of 15, 20 minutes, sometimes even creeping into 25 minutes of her session, sitting there discussing how her relationship with food, where it came from, her relationship with her body, how she felt about her body, her relationship to the version of the person that she wanted to become, both in business and in this area of her life that was probably the place she wasn't successful, where she was everywhere else. We did a lot of values work, future pacing, stuff I'd been learning from NLP. And I remember clients, other personal trainers in the gym would be staring at me while I was warming up with her for 25 minutes of the session. And eventually we came to the point where, like, mutually almost, again, I didn't have the confidence, I was just learning this stuff, to say, look, we do a lot of this. Would it be useful for us to do it separately? And she was as keen as me. And all I did at that point is I charged her for an hour of one of her sessions, and we did it in the coffee shop after one of her personal training sessions. So I kind of did 2 hours with her. Now, up until that moment, and I was very nervous at this point, because up until that moment, I think looking back now, the reason why I did it like that, almost in the gym, is because if I forgot what I was going to say, or didn't know what to do, or didn't know what question to ask, or felt a little bit like, oh God, this isn't really who I am, I'm just a personal trainer, I could just default, right, let's go train. And so it put me under a bit of pressure, I guess you could say, or I knew that I needed to step up and deliver. Now, this was a decade ago, 2014. The word hybrid did not exist. If you are listening to this training and you are a personal trainer in the gym and you are fully booked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a training which is called the Solution Reversal Upsell System, and it's 2 about 7-8 minute trainings, and it will show you exactly how to avoid this single one mistake that almost all people make, fit pros make, when they try and upsell some current clients into what we now call a hybrid. Now, I didn't have to do this. We kind of came to the agreement together, but this will allow you to get some extra income in and also start to practice some stuff outside of the gym. Plus, have a deeper impact with your clients. So if you put solution reversal system, upsell system in the comments, I'll make sure you get this free training. And I did hybrid with her. Hybrid didn't exist. It wasn't a word. It probably came out about 3 or 4 years later. Now, that then gave me the confidence, because I was like actually being paid to be a mindset and behavior coach. She was consciously paying me for, yes, it was an hour of my time, and yes, I charged the same that I charged her for personal training within this, but she was paying me for it, and we were getting results. And I started to understand the structure of what those 45-minute, 1 hour conversations looked like. And then I hired my first coach, and that was Glenn. I was in Glenn's program. I looked around. I was probably so busy loving what I was doing. I was making good money, and I looked around, and I one day slowed down, and partly because Glenn had asked me to do some training for his current clients or new clients in his program, and I realized these other guys weren't making as much money as me. And one of the reasons they weren't, and probably the biggest reason, is they weren't taking the sales and marketing and running with it like I did, because I had confidence of, I knew what to do with a client when I wasn't in the gym. This was mindset coaching for me, behavior change coaching, which is much more aligned to a conversation each week on Zoom, a 45-minute Zoom conversation, than something that you do in a gym. I realized that all of these other people around Glenn, while I was hitting my first 10k months, all these other clients in Glenn's programs were often not getting anywhere. When I took my first client on, when I joined Glenn's program, I had a sales call, and look, it wasn't a huge amount of money, and yes, I'd been charging high prices. So when I asked for this money, it didn't feel like a push, and I asked for £1,200, which was $1,800 for a 12-week program where I do a Zoom call once a week with that person for 45 minutes, and she excitedly said yes. And that was the journey that I went from being the one of one of London's most highly paid personal trainers, charging 10 times what I eventually charged this client online. But the fact is, I went through these stages. Personal trainer says on the tin, doing the mindset stuff, seeing the power of this, selling this client into like a hybrid option, and then eventually making that move where I was fully online, and eventually really confident with the online stuff that I was doing, and realizing actually, you know what, clients' results don't get worse, they don't suffer, and in fact I'm in a much better position to have true impact with the client, and that shift that I was looking to have with them, and eventually leaving the gym and moving everything online. Guys, listen, hopefully that's helpful. If you want this training, it will help you have conversations with current clients or even ex-clients and bring some more income in, upsell them, I guess, into what's now called a hybrid. Just put solution reversal upsell system in the comments and I will get you a copy over. Speak soon.